You're listening to Remotely One, a podcast that educates, entertains, and inspires you to take your life back from the office commute. I'm Rick, a former beer rep who left the warehouse to become a voice actor and digital creator.
And I'm Kaleem, a remote work advocate and consultant. We're going to speak with some of the top professionals who have managed to avoid the commute as they share stories from the most inspiring to the most comical, all while working remotely.
Man, this sounds awesome. Let's clock in.
I have to tell you that before you got on, we're just going to be honest here. Like, before you got on, I had to, get this on. I had my shirt off. I had some nakedness going on the camera.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because if you don't know this, Rick and I grew up together. We went to high school together.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. So he's seen me naked plenty
You
of
were
times.
young together. You didn't actually grow up.
Correct.
Period.
I'm still a Toys R Us kid.
Do you remember the jingle?
Of course I do. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the words, but yeah.
Well done. Yeah, so what happens is when you jump on, it takes a snapshot so I can see my face and stuff. So when I hopped on, it was just me with no shirt on. I was like, yeah. I'm going to have to exit out and come back in.
Be still my heart.
Yeah. It's usually something dumb of me where I'm reaching for the camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome back to Remotely One. I am one of your amazing co-hosts, Rick Haney, joined by an esteemed colleague, Kaleem Clarkson. Hey, Kaleem.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello. I love esteemed.
Esteemed is an under. What is the word?
Statement?
Understatement for sure. You are above steamed. You are over esteemed. Yes.
I am sweating. I put 2 undershirts on today for today's guest. 2.
Did you moisturize?
Oh yeah, look at me. I'm shining.
Of course, you're nice and shiny. Look at that sheen, everybody. Oh my gosh, look at this guy. It's crazy. Oh wow. Hey everybody. Since you know how to find us, do us a huge favor. Go to ratethispodcast.com/remotely1 and just leave us a review. Again, ratethispodcast.com/remotely1. If you could do that, we would be ever so thankful. Since 2015, Remotely One is one of the largest communities of remote work professionals with over 3,000 Slack members and 5,000 email subscribers. It's free to join, so go check it out at remotely1.com. And with that out of the way, Kaleem, give us a tease or two about today's guest.
Today's guest has kind of been on my bucket list, so I am.
Oh yeah.
I know I say I'm nervous every show, but this one, like I said, I put 2 shirts on, Rick. I put 2 shirts on.
That might not be enough.
Yes. So I'm going to tell you who my bucket list guests are, right?
Yeah.
Jack Nillis, so if you're out there. And number 2,
Oh, can't say it just yet.
Can't say it.
Pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes. So Jack, if you're hearing this, man, come on, get on the show, Jack. Our guest today, Rick, they are originally from Philly, right? They're originally from Philly,
Eagles.
So go Eagles. And they're not afraid to walk at night, basically. They're not afraid to walk at night.
Right.
But our guest today currently resides in San Diego, California. So the sun, the perfect weather,
yes.
the beach.
That's Southern California.
Haven't never been there. Maybe we can go there now that we know somebody.
Maybe.
Our guest today, they were a former banker. Check this out. In 2020, our guest, they were one of only 3 witnesses invited to testify before the U.S. Senate Committee regarding the post-pandemic potential for remote work in government, right?
That's big time.
Before the Senate? Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, this is my favorite tidbit. There used to be a pilot that flew vintage open cockpit airplanes, and they loved to dress in character while they were doing it. So they
like Snoopy the Red Baron character?
Yes.
Or something more professional. I'm the flying ace up here, see?
Guess what's the oldest plane that you've ever flown?
1929.
1929.
Wow.
That shit still flies.
That's like my grandparents' age.
Oh my gosh. Our guests today, they have been featured in New York Times, Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and a dozen of others. They've appeared on NPR, The Today Show, CNBC Nightly News, Voice of America, oh my gosh, I'm tired, Fox News, and dozens of other TV, radio, and news programs. So just a few.
I mean, there's no wonder you're all out of breath. I'm
Yeah.
out of breath just reading that. I mean, that is so impressive. And it doesn't even stop there.
No, it doesn't stop there. Our guests today, they are the founder of Global Workplace Analytics, which I believe was started in 2006, Rick. So a minute before this whole pandemic thing,
Yeah.
And they're the founder of Global Workplace Analytics, which is a research-based consulting firm on workplace flexibility. Listeners and viewers, please
here we
give a warm welcome to Kate Lister! Let's go, baby!
Welcome to the show, Kate.
Let's go! Oh my gosh,
All right, everybody, settle down.
oh, settle down.
Everybody settle down. You in the front, sit down.
That goes
Holy
down as the
shit.
most incredible introduction ever.
No,
We do our
thank
best.
you. Oh my gosh.
We are so happy that you could join us. This might put us on the map, Kaleem.
Not sure where, but somewhere on the map.
The remote work peak is where we're at, Rick.
Yeah, yeah. You can see us in a vintage airplane with a map with the red X's that, like the old-fashioned going across the ocean.
Actually, that's one of the big problems in flying a vintage airplane, an open cockpit biplane. I mean, you've got a map, right? It's like
Yeah.
this big, and it's all
Yeah.
folded. And it's very windy out there.
Oh, wow. Can you imagine being the guy that loses grip on the map? What do you do then? Oh, shit!
Where do we fly? Where do we fly next?
Oh, my gosh. Well, this is going to be a fun episode. I can feel it already. Thanks for joining us, Kate. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Your credentials are hugely impressive, and I'm a inspirational kind of guy. I love to hear about what inspires people, where they got their start. And I'm wondering, in your case, you've been doing this for so long. What was it that was your influence to get started in this business? And how did it take you from where you started to where you are now?
Pantyhose.
Like great pair of legs pantyhose? Or
Maybe. There
Okay.
were a number
Okay,
of...
okay, let me guess. I'm sorry, with pantyhose.
I hated them. I hate dressing up. I hated it. When I was
Okay.
a banker, it was like one of the worst parts was having to dress up.
Ooh.
And so then when I was a barnstormer, I got to wear flight suit and goggles and helmet and all kinds of cool stuff. And when we sold that business, it's like, nope, not going to wear pantyhose again.
What year is this, Kate?
2006,
Wow.
almost 20 years ago.
So pantyhose, you're like, I don't want to wear pantyhose again. Now, I've never worn pantyhose.
Oh, come on.
I may at some point. But from what I understand, it's like, it's a whole situation.
Oh, it
right? Like,
pinches at the waist. I mean, I can't even think straight with them on.
hey, Joe Namath did it.
Hey, lots of people do it. So you were frustrated with pantyhose. How and why or where did the concept of workplace flexibility, or telework probably at that time is what you called it, how
Yeah.
did you even look that way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, so we're running this vintage airplane business. We ran it for 16 years. I was a banker before that. And I say we, my husband and I, we just didn't want to go back to real jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started looking around for what kinds of work can you do at home. And we ran across all of the usual scams and, all of the junk that was out there, still out there, I'm sure, but now there's at least some legitimate stuff. And so we went to John Wiley and Sons. We'd written a couple of books for them in the past, and asked them to we wanted to write a book about remote work. And we wanted it to be a business book to show organizations the benefits of allowing people to work flexibly. And they said, no, we don't think that businesses are going to be interested in that. So, so they said,
Wiley, take that. Wiley, come on, John Wiley. You know how popular that book would have been probably 2 years ago?
Yeah.
so they said, okay, write a consumer title. So we did. It was called Undress for Success,
Oh.
The
Oh.
Naked Truth About Making Money at Home.
Amazing.
And the one thing we begged them was to not put bunny slippers on the cover. What was on the cover? Pink bunny slippers. I mean, we were trying to add legitimacy to working from home.
That would have
right?
been a deal breaker.
And it was really in researching that book. I mean, I've always been kind of a research nut and a numbers nut, that I realized nobody had made the C-suite business case for this. Nobody had showed the senior executives that they could increase productivity, that they could reduce turnover, save money in real estate, reduce absenteeism, any of those things. Nobody had really quantified it. And so I put together a model that showed a typical employer could save about $12,000 per half-time hybrid employee per year.
Really? For the book, you decided that you wanted to write the book. And again, this is roughly 2006-ish. So there weren't a ton of companies that were publicly talking about being remote or using telework at that time. So what did you do to write the book? Like, how did you find some data and find some examples? Who did you reach out to, for example?
Yeah, Census had some data at the time, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Talked to some companies that were early adopters. Sun Microsystems was an early adopter. American Express was an early adopter. There were lots of companies that were trying this. In fact, call centers were one of the first kinds of organizations that went to this, because they would move into a town, they'd do their population studies, and they'd say, okay, yeah, this place is going to have a lot of people that are likely to want to work in a call center. They move in a year, they exhaust the population of anybody that would ever want a call center job, and they have to pull up stakes and move somewhere else. And so they said there's got to be a better model. And so a number of companies found when they went to the remote work model, they'd get like 4,000 candidates for every job posting that they put out, because people could do it from anywhere all over the world. And it was the kind of thing that you could do for an hour and then stop and then do for an hour. So it really appealed to a lot of people.
That's incredible. Were you working remotely as you were writing this book, or did this predate your remote career?
Actually, when I left banking, I started another business helping business owners find financing and doing venture capital. And I did that from home.
Okay.
And then the barnstorming business, the flight seeing business, we largely ran from home because it's such a cool business. Everybody wants to come out in the airport and just talk your ear off and tell you what they know and tell stories and listen to your stories. And it actually is a business. We had to deal with the FAA, we had to deal with drug testing, we had 72 pilots over the 16 years that we ran it. I mean, it was a real business. And so we had to get off the airport to run it from home. And we enjoyed that. So there was that common thread since probably I was 32 of working remotely and enjoying it.
So it was kind of a progression. You went from working remotely with your vintage flight seeing company. Yeah, I love that word, by the way, flight seeing. That's such a great term. I'd never heard that before. So you moved from, even though that was kind of a work from home endeavor, you progressed more toward the consulting side of things. What were some of the biggest challenges for the companies that you were consulting back then?
Wow.
Just convincing them that this was a good thing to do. I remember one of my first clients was a hospital system in San Diego. And there was a lot of changes in the healthcare system and the insurance system. And as a result, they were really scaling up quickly. And they needed 400 people out of the building by year end because they just didn't have room for any more people. So they brought me in and, I think it was somebody in facilities that actually was the champion. She brought me in and we put together a meeting with the president and the head of real estate and the head of HR and head of technology, and said, look, here's the business case when I go through that whole progression of how you get to that $12,000 savings a year. I mean, you and I know there's a lot of other qualitative benefits of hybrid and remote work. But when you're talking to the C-suite and you're talking to the CFO, they like the language of money. And so that, that was where we lead. I was sort of a chameleon. Whatever you want to throw at me, I can throw back hybrid work. You want to talk about sustainability, I'll throw you hybrid work. You want to talk about productivity, I'll throw you hybrid work. You want to talk about saving money, I'll throw you hybrid work. So whatever it took to make the sale. And so in that case, we helped them to get the people out of the building. We did a pilot. Lots of people were interested in doing it. And within 6 months, We had freed up a lot of space as a result of those people working from home. In fact, they were building a new building at the time, multi-million dollar building. And when I had the head of real estate in the room, I said, why are you building that building? Why don't you consider doing a wide-scale remote work program for the people that you already have in this building, and you may not even need it. And he looked over at his second and said, why can't we do that? And the guy's saying, no, we're too far along. And he's like, why don't you look into that? And so they actually had him, see if it was possible to reverse course on this new building. Ultimately, they decided it was not, but they continued to embrace remote work.
Wow.
Kate, you said some things earlier about the calculator. I want to kind of go back to that because I feel like understanding the savings, what factors did you consider when trying to build in that calculator of savings? That's my first question. And then I guess the second part of the question is, does the calculator still exist and have you had to update it?
Again, I'm a little bit of a numbers nut. The calculator has 600 calculations and 125 variables.
Okay, let's stop. How in the, I'm not going to curse, I want to curse. How in the, did you come up with 600 variables? Like, how did you do this?
Only 125 variables, 600 calculations.
Sorry. That's a big difference.
Get it together, Kaleem.
You can tell she knows research a little bit.
All right, so let's look at productivity, right?
Okay.
When somebody isn't working, either because they don't have the right resources or because they're constantly interrupted 15, 20 times a day, that takes away from their productivity. So if you take a typical salary, and in the US, I think the average is about $50,000 a year, and you divide it out by minutes, you can quantify what that loss is in time. So, as it turns out, a company could pay for the entire office space for an employee for a year if they save 10 minutes a day as a result of working from home. And in reality, most employees then, and it turns out now, give back about half of the time they would have otherwise spent playing in traffic.
Right.
You get up, pad into the office, you get your coffee, you kind of go to work. Somewhere along the way you take a shower, and people work more, and that has proven true during the pandemic as well. So that's productivity. So for that you need the average salary, and that's going to change by city, and you need the minutes per day that you're going to save. Looking at real estate, you need the average square footage per person, the cost per square foot of a typical office in a typical city.
Okay.
Absenteeism, you need the average number of days that somebody's absent, and you've got to multiply that out by if they're only doing it half time, because that was the assumption. And quite frankly, I've always been in favor of the hybrid model. That we never called it that.
Correct.
But
Correct.
On average, the people who worked from home historically have worked from home half of the time. And guess what? Right now, we're finding that people that are working from home are working from home 2 to 3 days a week. That's half time. And so, yes, I actually remembered your second question.
Well done.
I put that calculator online, I think it was in 2010, and made it free, available to anybody, and have had thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people using it. It's still there. In fact, the U.S. Government Accountability Office came to me at one point because Congress had charged them with finding tools to quantify the impact of telework in government. And they looked around and they found mine and said, we want to check this out. And I gave them a peek behind the curtains. I showed them all the variables. I showed them all the research. Typically, I would have, here's why you're going to save money in productivity or why you're going to increase productivity. Here's the 10 research studies that prove it, and here's the 10 companies that have done it. And so for each of those things, I had that background to show. I've got a database of over 7,000 documents that I've collected over the years. Anything I can put my eyeballs on that has to do with hybrid work and flexibility and employee wellness and stress and office design and all those kinds of things. And so I showed them that as well. And ours was the only tool that they recommended in their report to Congress. And they said that it was comprehensive and thoroughly researched.
You hear that?
Woo-hoo.
You hear that?
Amazing.
Audience? You hear that, audience? There's a tool out there. So I don't want to hear any BS about we don't know the calculation of savings for remote employees. That is BS, people. You got a calculator right here.
Yeah.
Global
workplace.
I was going to say workforce analytics.
The engine was running, folks, but there was no one behind the wheel.
Global workplace analytics, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
got not just the employer savings, but employee savings and what they save a year in food purchased out, in transit, in serendipity purchases, all thoroughly researched, and also what the environment can potentially save.
Wow.
In fact, we figured out that if everyone who had a compatible job, which at that time I think was about 42% of the U.S. workforce, worked from home half of the time, it would be the equivalent of taking the entire New York State workforce off the road.
Unbelievable. That is impressive.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't prove true in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Driving actually went up.
Yeah. You mentioned a few minutes ago about the government, and I've been dying to ask this question about your having testified to the U.S. Senate committee. What was that experience like, and what ultimately happened with it? What did they find as a result of your testimony?
Yeah, so I guess this was early 2020, so it wasn't long after the pandemic started. And there were some senators that were interested in continuing it. They had been before the pandemic. In fact, the federal government has had on its books, 2000, a regulation that said every employee is to work from home to the maximum extent possible. Since 2000. And that was put in place because of bird flu.
Oh, yeah.
They feared a pandemic, and they needed to understand that their people could work remotely if they needed to. It was a continuity of operations, disaster preparedness planning tool.
So they call you, they want you to testify.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't believe him. My husband said that this is a senator or something on the line. It's like, nah.
Yeah.
Oh, they called you.
You're pulling my leg, yeah. Yes. That sort of got it started. And they wanted me to come to Washington to do it. Okay. This is like 2 months into the pandemic. They want me to get on an airplane and fly from San Diego to Washington to talk about why we should work from home.
It would have had a profound effect if they had just had a Zoom call, but that's just my opinion.
Well, we did. Actually, all three of the witnesses did it via Zoom.
Oh, wow.
Preparing it
Okay.
was insane. You have exactly 5 minutes, and they bring in the hook and pull you off stage. Wow. And as it turns out, they don't even do that. The senators interrupt you and ask questions in the middle of it. And so that had to be precisely timed, and then you had to submit written testimony as well, which was different from the verbal testimony. But I didn't know that until 20 minutes before I went on that morning. I thought I was just going to deliver my written testimony. And in the pre-call, right, that morning, they said, oh no, you can't do that. So I had to make it up on the fly.
Do you remember the question that they asked you to respond to?
Oh, a lot of questions like, what evidence do you have that people will be more productive? Do you think managers are equipped to manage people working remotely? What are the downsides? The senators that were in favor of it sort of prompting me for what are the other upsides? Have you seen companies that have done it? And in my testimony, which is also free, available on our website, and I've submitted another one since, it was a written testimony, are just about all the statistics you could ever want for remote work.
Interesting.
So just go to our white paper page and download everything you want.
There's a ton of white papers on there, too.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So it was intimidating.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I can't imagine what it's like, and the reason I ask is because we know in this country sometimes our politicians are not exactly on the ball with a lot of things.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think one guy a couple of years ago said that the internet was a series of tubes in which physical information was sent through. It was the Zuckerberg interview when he testified.
Right.
So,
Oh no.
so were there any moments during your testimony when, I don't know, somebody thought that it was like a remote that you held in your hand to search for jobs?
Well, everyone's sitting in their underwear, right, Kate? Everyone's sitting in their
Right.
underwear. How can they work in their underwear, Kate?
Well, yeah, you get that all the time. But there was this big old senator, and he was leaning back in his chair, and he says, I think they're just sitting on the sofa, and they're eating bonbons, and they're doing their laundry. That's what I think.
Well, at least he gave them credit enough to do their laundry. That's what he thinks of most Americans.
But I mean, okay, so what's the problem with that? Did they get their job done? You know, this has been the problem since the beginning, is that employers simply don't trust their employees to work untethered, and they don't know how to manage by results.
That's exactly it.
Martha Johnson, who was the head of the US GSA when they were doing a big experiment in government, this has to be 10 years ago or more, but they were taking a downtown Washington building, historic building, that was designed for 2,000 people, and implementing telework at the same time. And the way they designed it, nobody had a assigned seat, and through telework, you would just come in when you needed to and work at home when you didn't, or work at a telework center. And they were able to convert that building to house 4,500 people instead of 2,000. And Martha had a line that I just love. Telework doesn't create management problems, it reveals them. And I think that what we saw in the pandemic is the pandemic and working from home didn't create the problems, but it revealed that managers aren't managing by results, which we knew already. The managing by backs of heads is equivalent to babysitting as far as I'm concerned. Not to mention the highest time viewership of porn is during working hours prior to the pandemic. So,
of course,
that tells you a lot about whether or not that management by working around was working.
Yeah.
Awfully risky to be on X.com.
Risque, I might add.
Risque, aka Twitter while you're at work. X.com.
This brings up a really valid point, and in a way you kind of already answered this, but I was hoping to dive a little bit deeper. Before, when you first started out, your consulting role was basically convincing companies about the benefits of remote work. And then the pandemic hits, and this buzzword just explodes, and it's something that everyone is having to deal with. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between pre-pandemic, convincing companies, and now post-pandemic, where everybody is looking for remote work? What are some of the challenges you face now versus then?
Yeah, 2020 and 2021 practically killed me.
Really?
I mean, I was just so busy with companies wanting advice on how to manage this. I mean, we were sort of in denial, I guess, for the first year at least. And even beyond that, I think companies have been in triage mode. We're going to go back, we're going to go back, we're going to go back. And so we've never really changed the practices and the processes to support remote and hybrid work, which, by the way, also support on-site work, better support on-site work. I equate it to, when you first got cell phones, only using them at the house. Or when we first got smartphones, only using them to make phone calls. I think still that's what most companies are doing. But in that first several years, the companies that realized, hey, this is working pretty well, this is a pretty good thing, how do we optimize it? That's where I got involved, is, how do we get leadership on board? How do we get them aligned? And then how do we do the change management and the training and all that's needed to optimize the practice? And how do we decide what's our policy going to be? Just getting them to that point. A lot of companies, heck, didn't even announce it until, 2-3 months ago?
Right.
But those early companies, they really gained a lot of, I think, loyalty among their employees, because they came out and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to put in place that you're going to have the tools that you need, tell us what you need, we're going to do the training, we're going to do this thing right. So that was pretty much what I did for the first couple of years. And then the last year has been, how do we get them to come back? That's always the first question I've gotten in the last year.
So now you're in this space where before, you've seen Mick out there doing his research thing. Shout out Dr. Bloom. But before the pandemic, right, you had all those stats, right, less. And now you saw the huge increase, right? And now we're kind of dipping back down. But everyone has experienced remote work now, mostly. And even if you didn't get an opportunity to work remotely, there's a good chance that you interacted with somebody who was working remotely. So are you still kind of, in that place of, I feel like we need to convince people still, and you're still kind of taking that on? And I heard you say people are asking you, how do we get people back into the office? So where are you kind of putting your company as far as what you will do and what you I'm not going to do? How do you make that decision? Because we won't, at Blend, we kind of followed a lot of your work. Shout out to Global Workplace Analytics. I got it. And, we've referenced your stuff. We give you shout outs all the time. But the first thing that we decided when we started in 13 was we don't want to be the convincing agency because it's just, the effort and how much time it takes. So where do you kind of see your priorities now? Like someone comes to you and says, how do I get people back into the office? Are you willing to take that consulting job on?
At first I was not.
Interesting.
But then I realized that there's still an education that needs to happen, and I just don't think the employers are going to win. And so what I feel my role is to ask them why. Why do you want to get your people back? And typically it's because we're losing productivity, our culture is declining, it's impeding innovation, and engagement is lower. And I said, really? Do you have data that shows that? And they never do. And then I show them the research that says, no, it's not true, right? And so it's getting them to measure. If you say that your culture is declining, how are you measuring that? What does that mean? And very often it's just the CEO's own bias and personality. I got to interview the head of HR for Netflix the morning after Reed Hastings announced that no good will ever come out of remote work, right? Before that little pre-conversation, I said, can I ask you about that? I mean, is that fair game? And she said, yeah. She said, bottom line is he thought everybody felt like he did. Everybody wanted to be back in the office. Everybody loved this environment. And it just wasn't true. And they could show him surveys and show him that 90% wanted to continue to work from home. And he just had a closed mind on it. So I show them the evidence, I give them the examples, and then I show them there's plenty of things to be worried about, but those are the wrong things. And so let's focus on what the right things that you should be worrying about.
That's fascinating. I never once thought about why you would want to take on a client that's saying no. And I was on a podcast recently and they just said, what can we do to further this movement or this not a new way, but this way of work that people want? And you just said something that just really hit hard. And it's the employers are not going to win this battle over time. So you're taking it upon yourself to go out and help those employers because they're not going to win. And you have all the research to show it. So instead of saying, I'm not even going to help you, which I'm embarrassed, that's what we say. But you're going the opposite way, saying, no, I need to actually work with those peoples that don't understand so that we can move this forward.
Well, they pay me, so that helps.
Well, of course.
Yeah. That's the bottom line, folks.
Show me the money, damn it. Show me the money. Show me the money. I'm rich, bitch.
Oh my
best
gosh.
part of the show. That makes sense. But kudos to you for doing that.
That is amazing. Kate, do us a favor. Can you share with us a comical or even an inspiring moment that you have had during your remote career?
Yes.
Well, I hope it doesn't inspire.
Okay.
Oh, okay, even better.
And we love details, as many details.
Juicy.
We want to be there with you, as many details as possible.
Oh, I'm not sure you do. I'm pretty sure I don't want you there with me. Okay, so I'm running late for a call. I'm making the bed, actually changing the sheet on the bed. You know how you pull the corner of the mattress up to get the damn sheet around the corner?
Yes.
When you're making the bed. You've made beds, right?
Yes. Mama said, make that bed. I made beds for sure.
So I've got it balanced up on my knee, and my knee slips, and it hits the corner of the end table, which is glass top, and it hurts like the dickens. So I go and I get an ice pack out of the freezer. I wrap it around my leg. I think this is about 20 minutes before the call, and I'm getting ready for the call, and I take the thing off my leg, and my leg is now crunchy. Like you push on it, the skin is crunchy. So of course I look it up online, and it's frostbite. It's like, okay, but what do they do for frostbite? They soak it in hot water. So I go and I run the tub, and I get in the tub, and this is the part where I really didn't want you there.
Understand that. That's okay.
And I get on my call, and everything's going.
In the tub?
Yes.
You just decide, I'm going to bathe in my bubbles and get on the call. And what year is this? What year is this, too?
Oh, gosh. That was about 10 years ago.
Okay, so the tech isn't as quick and easy. Okay.
No.
The phone has an antenna.
Yes, exactly. And okay, call's going fine, everything's fine. And then I realize that the bubbles are going to come on, the jet is going to come on in 45 minutes.
Okay.
Because it comes on by itself and cleans itself out. And it's really loud. And so I'm thinking, just 40 minutes into this call, how do I end the call? Because you can't turn it off. It comes on automatically.
Okay.
Do I fess up here or what? As it turned out, it was a woman I was on the call with, and it was my first call, first time I'd met her. And I said, look, I just have to be honest here. It's going to get noisy.
You did the right thing, though.
I mean, okay, it's going to get noisy. Is that all you said?
Well, then I told her why quickly so that I would still beat the tub is in the office, by the way. It's a hot tub.
It's a hot tub. So what happened? Oh, yeah, what happened?
My leg was fine and everything worked out fine. Got to be good friends with the woman that was
that is
I
so
confessed
great.
to.
Oh. I mean, it would have been kind of hilarious if I happened to just bust open the door and be like, oh, excuse me.
I'm here for the call.
I'm here for the call.
Yeah,
The bubble bath. This is the first bubble bath story we've heard, Rick. That's hilarious.
It is.
Wow. Probably the last.
Oh, man. Thank you for sharing that. That was a great story. Where can our listeners find you?
Oh, thank you for asking.
Yes.
Globalworkplaceanalytics.com. And we've got lots of free resources. We have, over the years, made it a point to make as much as we can available for free.
Okay. Awesome. What about your socials? Where do you hang out on the social media webs?
Oh, I thought you were asking my social security number. Yes, I'm very active on LinkedIn, a little less active on Twitter. Not active on Facebook because it makes me depressed that everybody else is having much more fun than I am.
Yeah, I get that.
Not everybody.
Not everyone. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for coming on the show. I couldn't believe it when I was looking through the list and I was like, oh my gosh, we've never sent the invite. You've been on my bucket list. You're a huge inspiration to my partner and I, who we decided to build a consultancy. And, we were on your website for so many hours in 2012 and 2013. I just want the audience to listen to what Kate had to say today. She is an OG in this remote workspace, a pre-pandemic remote professional, OG. So again, I just had to gush a little bit at the end right there. So just thank you so much, and I can't wait to meet you in person at some point.
Yeah. Thanks, Kaleem. Thanks, Rick.
Awesome.
You've been listening to Remotely One. Visit us at remotely1.com/podcast for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and download our episodes on your favorite podcast app.
Hey, don't forget to clock out.